Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a continuation of the previous tutorial. So if you haven't seen part 1 of this video, please check it out before you watch this. Now the first thing we need to do is load some rows here, but unfortunately we don't have any rows, so we have to create some. So the actual first thing to do is actually create some rows. So I just want to add a button here that says add new. So we can add a new one there. So let's go before the table. Let's grab one of these buttons, any of these, and copy it there, and then we can change it to add new. Okay, so I'm on the index page here, looking for the beginning of the table. This is the end tag for the table. Let's go to the opening tag, which is right here. This seems to hold the entire table. There's a title here. Let's remove the break tag. We don't need that. So right about here, I want to add a button. So let me just check where any button is, so I can actually, so like the previous page or next page. Let me just grab any of these, make a copy, and paste it there, like so. Okay, so instead of next page, we're going to say add new, like so. Now the thing is, when we click add new, we want the thing to pop up, this thing that adds, that was here, that will add a new record. So once I click there, it should pop up. So what I need to do now is use JavaScript, because remember, JavaScript works in the browser here. It's the language that can manipulate the UI to your liking during runtime, as in when the website is already running. PHP manipulates the page while it's still on the server. By the time it gets to the browser, it's only HTML, but JavaScript can manipulate the page while it's already loaded in the browser. So JavaScript is perfect here. So that once we click add, it shows us a dialog box here where we can add something. So in order to achieve that, we should tell the button that when it's clicked, it should do something. Now you can do that by adding an event listener, something to listen to the click event. So in order to add an event, you just have to put that event as an attribute. You type on like this. So now there are all these events you can work with, and the one I'm looking for is the on-click listener, like that. So on-click, something should happen. Now, anything I type in here should be valid JavaScript, otherwise it's going to cause an error. But the problem is this space is too small. I could do this and then add a lot of JavaScript here, but that wouldn't be very organized. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to create an object down there that we're just going to call a function from it. Or let's just call a function directly instead of creating objects. That may be a bit confusing. So let's just create a function that we're going to call instead. So we can give this function any name we please. In this case, when we click, we can just call the function add new record. Open and close bracket, because you have to add that in order to tell JavaScript that this is actually a function we are calling and not a variable. So add new record there. So that's all we need actually. So I'm going to grab this because now it's going to look for that function. So we need to add this to our script tags in order to put JavaScript. Now you can put your script tags anywhere, it doesn't really matter. So let's put a script tag down here. It's just better at the end, so it's easy to find all this, the JavaScript when you need to. So we're going to create a function like so. All right. So add new record. Now, for now, I just want the function to alert me, just show a pop-up of an empty string to show that it's actually responding. So if I refresh the page, click, there we go. Now, instead of all this, I wanted to grab this item. I wanted to grab this class 26 because it's hidden. So I just wanted to remove the hide class. but this is not a very good name to work with. So let me give it a different class so it has more names. I'll prefix it with JS, so I know this class is not used for styling, but I just want to use it to grab this item using JavaScript. So say JS add new pop-up. Now if it's the only pop-up, you can just call it pop-up. So this name is entirely up to you. Just design it as you wish. You can change this to anything you want. So here I want to grab that item. So to grab an item, you type the word document dot query selector. So query selector is a function inside the document object, like this. So what query selector does is it looks for whatever you supply in here and tries to find it in the document. So in this case, we are finding this, and we put a dot because we are using a class name. If it's an ID, we'll put a pound sign like this. And then if it's a tag name, like for example, div, you're looking for the first div you can find. You don't put any of these, you just type div and it will grab the first div it finds. But since it's a class, we're grabbing that. So we'll say let. Now we'll give it a name. So we'll call it pop-up is equal to. So once we do that, we've grabbed that item. And now we're going to be calling it pop-up every time. So I'll say pop-up dot class list. So the pop-up has a property called class list, which lists all the classes that it has in the class tag. And I want to remove one class from there, and that class is called the hide class, like that. So it's as simple as that. All we are doing is grabbing the item and removing the hide class. That's it. So if I refresh and then I click there, look what happens. Now we can see this. But we need to be able to close it. So this is one thing I forgot to add when designing. So let's add a close button right on the thing itself, so we can close. So add new record, but instead of add new record, this should be a function that describes what it's doing, which is show add new record. I think that's a better description of what's going on here. So where is that button? Let's change the function reference, show add record, like that. Alrighty then, that's great. That way then, when we say add record, that will be another function that actually adds a record. And then with show, we obviously need a hide version of this. So we say hide add new record. And the same process, we grab that thing, and then instead of removing, we add a class called hide, and that will hide it. Simple and straightforward. Hide, and then this one will be when we submit the information to the database. Okay, great. We'll edit that later. This is not the code that will be there, but at least now we can open, close, and hide that. So I just want to grab a button like this one. So copy that and go to the pop-up itself. Where is it? This one right here. So before the image, I just want to add a button right here. So I'll paste that button. This will be the close button that I want to add here. And then on the click of this one, you see on click, we're just going to reference the hide add new record. That's all we're doing. And here, instead of saying next page, we'll put a giant X. Then let me add some separate styles here because it's going to be different, I guess. And I want it to float to the right side of the page. I want its background color to be red. Right? And its color to be white. So let's see if that actually works. So I'll refresh, click add new, and there it is. So you see that if I click it, it closes the dialog box as intended. Okay. But it's obstructing. This image is no longer in the center. So maybe what I should do is put this inside a div so that it has its own line of sight. Like this. so that everything else is on a separate line. Doesn't seem to work now, does it? What's going on? Oh, because it's floating, so it doesn't conform to... What to do? Okay, let me change things a little bit. Let me just say style text align. Let me align things to the right. And then instead of floating it, let me just change its display to inline block. That way it will make it to give it a display of text, so that when I say text align right, it will actually move to the right. Okay, so that worked perfectly. Okay, so we can close that, add new. Now what we want is when, first of all, I want to be able to click on this image and then be given the dialog to load an image. So that's simple. We can do that using this input file right here that is hidden actually from view. So there's our image, but then there's this dialog box that's the input file. When we click this, if I remove its class, for example, you will see it here. Let me refresh. And if I click on it, it shows me this. But I don't want to click on this. I want to click on the image. So first of all, I want to make sure the image has a style of cursor. Should have added that in. Cursor pointer, so that the icon changes to a pointer. That way the user knows you can click on it. And then what I want to do is add these two inside a label like this. Now what a label does is that anything inside that label, when I click the label itself, it's like clicking everything inside it, right? So since there's an input file thingy here, if I click the label, I'm clicking that as well. So let's do a refresh. And if I click on the image, not here, but on the image, you see that's what happens. So now we can safely hide this guy without a problem. So I'll remove that like so, so that it's hidden. Now we can click on that thing. Now, once we click, we add a file. This input is going to have a change in the input, or the value. Its value will change to reflect the item we've added. So we can put a listener on the onChange. Here I'll just tell it to display an image like so. So we're going to create a function called display image on the change event of this input. And we need to supply the file that was added. Now this particular input, just like we have a source for this image, which we don't have for a button, for example. We have different properties depending on what type of input or what type of object it is. This one doesn't have a source, but it has one called files because it's an input for files. It's a type file. And so it has a property called files, which is an array that holds all the files that the user has selected. So we're going to grab that files thingy. And since it's an array, we just want the very first file. So this is how you access an array and access the very first item. But the problem is files is just a variable at this point. We need to tell it that this files comes from this particular input. Now to reference this item, we can use the document.querySelector and then add a class here, like this class 28. And then we can grab this item and then say .files0 like this. But there's a shortcut. We can simply say this. Now this represents whatever item that this is in, depending on the context, I guess. So this, in this case, will mean this input. So this .files.0 is what we will send to this function. So let's create that function. And really what I want to do is I want to access this image source over here. And once I access it, I want to change its source to whatever file was supplied by the user. This is the file we are sending. So let's go down here. Oh, and in order to do that, I wanted to explain, in order to do that, because the onChange event is being created by this input. So which means if we send that event, we can use it to grab. So instead of this.files like this, let's just send the this like this. So to the function, we are sending the whole input element. That way we can tell it, oh, grab the parent of this, which is this label, and then inside that label, find the image tag. And then within that image tag, change its source to something else. So that's what we want to do here. So let's go to the function and create function display image. And we're expecting an element in there. So we're just going to call it short for element once we grab it. So that element is the input that created the onChange event. So in this case, I'm just going to say ele.parent node like this dot query selector. So inside that label, I want you to find something with an image tag, the only image tag that's in there. And then let's grab the files property of it, the very first one, like that. So here I'm just going to say let file is equal to, that way we grab the file itself. Oh, sorry, actually. Wait a minute, this is not true. The element has the file within it, so I'm just going to do this to grab the file. I don't need to do all this. So file is equal to element dot file 0, like that. That's how you get the file, because this is the input element. So file 0, that's great. What I wanted to grab here is the image tag. So, but I don't need to set it to a variable since we can use it immediately here. So here I'm going to say element.parentNode.query selector. So we grab the image thingy and then we change its source, and we say the source should be equal to the file we just grabbed. So let's just use file there, this one. The problem is this file is in form of a blob, so it won't work as a source. Source usually takes a URL or a link to a file. So let's convert this to an actual link instead. Conveniently, there's a way to do that using the URL object. So we say url.create object URL, like that. So there's a URL object that comes with JavaScript, and then it's got a method called create object URL. Now, in case you want to find out more about the URL object, you can simply do a console.log and input whatever object it is in there, like so. Now, if it doesn't work like that, just say window.url, like that, it's gonna work. And then you can inspect what methods it has, because it will show you exactly what methods are involved, and you'll find that the create object URL is one of those methods. Then you can Google and see what this function does to know. You can actually Google all the functions you see in there to see what they do. That way you can learn more about the URL object. So like this, this is just creating a local link to the file that the user selected, and then we're assigning it to the source of the image. And then this just grabs the file, right? But because we're simply displaying the image, we don't really need to use the file for anything else, really. So maybe we can get rid of this line either, but not just yet. We may need to validate the file type. So let's leave that as it is. So refresh, and I'm going to say add new. Now, if I click on this, let me go to where I know there are images, and let me grab one image here and put it there. As you can see, that's showing the image very well. Now, what if I add something that isn't particularly an image? Let's see here. If I go back here, maybe I can add a link or something, I don't know. Maybe a text document, right? Then we see that problem. Now, I don't want us to have that affect. We need to know when a valid image was added and not. So here I'm going to create a variable. I'll say var, we'll call it image added is equal to false. So we set it to false first, and then if we approve of the image, we'll set it to true. That way we know that this image is approved. Also, I want to only allow certain file extensions, right? So the first one is image/jpeg, comma, there's another one, image/png, and then image/gif. So this is entirely up to you what formats you want to allow. There's also image/webp, that's acceptable. I think those are enough. Now all we need to do is check if the file type, now file is a blob but also has properties, and one of those properties is image type. So you can also do a console.log of file to check out what it contains. But for me here, since I already know, I'm just going to say if allowed dot includes file dot type. Let's put a not here to negate this. So we'll say if not. So what that means is that if allowed array includes the file type, that because when you add a file, the file type may be one of these. So we're just simply trying to say if it's not in this list, then let's do something here. The first thing we do is return, which means exit the function. That way we don't have to run anything else down here. Also, we have to change the image added to false, meaning we didn't accept this image, so image was not added. And if we reach this place, we say image added is equal to true. That means an image was added. That's great, to the input. That way, the reason I'm using this image added thing is so that we know whether to upload the image that was added. Because if it's the wrong file type, then we can ignore it. So that's that. And then we need to tell the user that we don't accept the file so we do that with an alert. So we'll say only files of this type accepted. So you can put the file types accepted here. Now, instead of me retyping what files are accepted, I'll just use the array itself and then just say dot to string. Can I do that? Yeah, to string, I think, like so. So the to string, let me add a plus here so it can concatenate this message. To string just converts an array into a string and then puts a comma between the values in there. So let's see this in action. So I'm gonna go back here. Let's refresh. So once more, I will try to add a txt file, and it says only files of this type accepted: image JPEG, image PNG. But the image slash doesn't make much sense to the user. So what I can do is here on the toString, I can extend the functionality here and just say dot replace. Let's replace all like that. So because this item returns a string, and string objects, you can use this this function to replace certain parts of the string. So that's what I want to do. I want to find all references of image slash and then replace them with an empty string, like so. Okay. So let's try that again. So add new, click txt, and only files of type JPEG, PNG, GIF, and WebP accepted. Great, that's good. Now let's look at the default image here. I don't like that much. So I do know that I have a let me go to desktop images. I would rather use something like this as a placeholder. So Yeah, that's good enough. Or you can Google images to use here for placeholder. So I'll grab that. And let me go to my folder here, employees, inside assets, images, right click, open folder, and paste. So I want to replace this one. Now this one, I'll rename it to no_image, like that. Or you can name it user.jpg, that's fine. That way now I can replace it here on the source assets index, that's fine. Wait a second, oh yeah, that's where I went to. And images, and then here I want to replace this with no image, no_image.jpg. It's JPG. Let's see now. Yeah, something like that is better. So click. Now let's actually add an image, desktop, and it's accepted. Very good. Okay, so the rest of these, really, I just want to grab the information once. I actually forgot to put the save button here. That's insane. But no problem. What we do is we grab this button there. In fact, the whole thing. Copy. Let's go to the very end. Just after this, let's add that. Let's move. Oops. Let me remove this styling here. Maybe text align center will do. And once we do this, we say add new record, like that. That's the function we're going to rely on. So this is, change that to save. And what else? The rest I think are okay. There we go. So save, great. Very good. Let me edit this one here. There's email, then there's gender there. So let's go to the options here. The one gender is male. The other one is female. So let's add that. And here we'll say select gender. Now the name is gender, that's good. So refresh, add new, select gender, male, female, address, comments, first name, last name. Very good. Okay, so all we need to do now is once someone clicks save is to grab this item again and then look for all inputs in here and then grab their values, including the image, and then send them to the server using JavaScript. Now JavaScript uses a technology called Ajax in order to read or to get data from the server without refreshing the page. Because every time I refresh the page here, I'm just requesting this information from the server. But there's a way to do that without having to refresh the page, and that's by using Ajax. So Ajax is just a part of JavaScript. So we already have this add new record here. So first of all, what I need to do is grab the pop-up, which we have done here already. Now we don't need to do anything with hide and the thing there. What we want to do is make an Ajax request. But before we do that, let's make sure that all the inputs in there are filled in, especially the ones that we want to fill in. So let's look for those that are compulsory. For example, we need a first name, a last name, and an email. Those are indeed needed, just like gender as well. Now, if we go to the gender thingy here, this option, select gender, that doesn't make it empty. It means it has a value. So let's just add value here to explicitly make sure that this one is an empty value. This is okay. Okay, so we have that. This one is email, blah, blah, blah. So let's look for those that are compulsory. The ones that we can omit, maybe address and comment, those can be optional, but the rest have to be compulsory. So what we can do now, let's go down here. we can say let optional. Since the optional ones are fewer, let's list those instead. So the optional ones are comment and which other one? Address, right? So those are optional fields. So now what we do is let's grab all fields. So we'll say let inputs is equal to pop-up. So since they're in the pop-up, we'll do a query selector all, like that, to get all instances of whatever we're searching for. I'm looking for input, comma, or select. And what else? And text area. So all these are tags. Now, if I want to look for classes, I'll put dots like this in there. I don't know if this is gonna work, but let's give it a shot. And then what I'll do is I'll do a console.log inputs so that I just see what this inputs thing grabbed. That's how you do it. So let's right click, inspect to the console. That's how we check for anything that was logged to the console. In this case, we told it to log something to the console. So let's click add, and then I'm gonna click save. Okay, so since this is fixed, it won't move when I scroll here. I just have to click save there, and look what it got. It created a node list, and it has all the inputs. So there's this input, for example, which is of type file. There's the first name, last name, and there's the email, there's the gender, and so if you look for the values in here, if you click here and look for value, that one is empty. All of them are empty. So we can just check for value and make sure that the ones that are not optional have the right value. So even the text areas were grabbed as well, because that's the tag, and the select was grabbed. So it's working as intended. So this is how you can select things of multiple type, like so. Okay, so with that in mind, we can loop through the input. So we'll use a for loop here. It doesn't matter the order we are looping. Here we are looping in reverse, but that's fine. So we'll say inputs like that. And what I would say is if inputs i.value is empty like this, then we have to alert the user and say this input can't be empty. So we'll first grab the input.name, the name of the input, and add to it and say space can not be empty, or is not valid, or something. So let's do that. Let me put the brackets here. And then once we have that, we exit the function and say return. But the thing is, we don't want to do this to every input. We have to check if, for example, that input is not part of the optional list. So we'll say if optional dot includes, and then and, so those two things should be true at the same time. If the thing is empty, maybe we can check for emptiness first, because that's easier to check than going through an array. Going through an array seems like a much tedious job than just checking if the value of this is empty. So let's start with that, because if this is false, it doesn't matter what this is, so the computer won't even bother to check this. But if this is true, it will want to check that as well, so that if both are true, then it works here. So if the input is empty and then it's not part of the optional, so let's put not there, includes, optional.includes, what are we looking for? We're looking for the inputs.name, the name of that input. Okay, then we can say that cannot be empty. So let's give it a shot. So I'll close the console, refresh, click add, and click save, and it say gender cannot be empty. Okay, great. Let's add something to the gender. Let's see what it complain now. Email cannot be empty. Okay, So working as intended. Very cool. Now we can also edit this. For example, let's remove dot replace all. Let's replace the underscores because some of the names have underscores. Let's replace that with a space like this. Okay, just in case. Okay, I think that works well. So if we get to this point, then we need to save, which means everything was accounted for, and that works. So if there's another field you add that's optional, just add it in there. Now, in order to save, we have to create a form. So let's create a form. We're going to say let my form is equal to new form data, like that. That's how you create a new form. Careful with the capitalization. And then once we create a form, we can just add things to that form. Okay. Now we would have to create a loop, okay, here to loop through the inputs once again, and then add those items to the form. But we can kill two birds with half a stone here. So what I'm going to do is, let me add the form at the top here. So if it goes through and this doesn't affect it, then let's add that item dot append to the form. Okay, so we say my form dot append. So if it didn't get here, which means we didn't exit the function, as long as we got here, then that's good. And then once we are looping, if we loop through all of them, we're going to add everything. By the time we get here, the form will have every input in there as part of these fields. Now, in order to append something, you have to put a key and a value there. So in this case, what is our key? Our key is the input.name, the name of that input, and then its value is the value, I guess, like so. Okay, that works well. Now, the only exception is the file input, the one with the image. So the file input, we'll have to deal with that separately. But for now, I'm just going to leave it like this. So to save now, we have to open a port using Ajax. So I'm just going to say var Ajax is equal to new XML HTTP request. So we're creating a new HTTP request, and that's how we do it. So we say ajax.open because we have to open it, and then we tell it to send the data. So that's how you open, that's how you send. Of course, we'll add some params in here, but for now, this is okay. Now, we also need to listen in for a result, and we'll do that by adding an event listener. So we'll say add event listener to listen for when things have come back, because we need to know when the result is there and if the result is good. So in the event listener, you need two things. What event are you listening for? So here we are listening for the ready state change, like that. And then when that happens, we should tell it what function to run. So we can either put a function name there, or we can just declare the function within that spot, like so. And then I want to put space between those curly brackets so that I can add a lot more code than I can when they are closed like that. So first of all, I want to know when. So the ready state change is whenever the state of the Ajax thingy changes. Now it has 4 states. So we are only interested in the 4th one because that's when it means data has come back. So we can say ajax.ready state. So when it's equal to 4, then we are good. It means everything is done, data was returned. Now, it's also possible that the internet was not connected, or we couldn't reach the remote computer, because remember, this JavaScript is running on the client as browser, not on the server itself. So it may have problems connecting to the internet. So we need to make sure that things went well, but to do that we can check for the status to be equal to 200. Now 200 means everything okay. That means it actually found a file online that suits what you're trying to do, and then that file returned a result. So if it's equal to 200, everything okay. But if it's any other status, then an error occurred. So we're going to say an alert here, could not connect, like that. All right. Now, it's not always that if it's not a 200, then it could not connect. So what you could do instead is on the else statement, you can just check what status is in here and then put custom messages depending on the status. Now you can just Google HTTP status and then check what each status means. Because for example, a 500 status means it found the file, but there was an error in the code that's on the file. That's an error 500, internal server error. So you can, 300 I think means it was redirected or something. 200 means it's okay. There are variations of 200. There's 201, 202. They all mean something. So you can code very specifically and put if statements here or a switch statement for that. But I'm not particularly interested in that. For as long as it's not a 200, for me, I'll just say could not connect. That's all right. So here, when the results are back, I just want us to see what the results are by saying alert ajax.response text. That's where the response information lies, in the Ajax object.response text variable. Okay, now when we open this, we have to tell it whether it's a post or a GET request. So let's say post request. The next thing is we have to tell it what file we are trying to access on the server. So we're going to call that file ajax.php. And then let's put the true switch here to tell it to run in a separate thread, right? So that it doesn't freeze our current program. It will open a new thread and run in there. Then when we send, what are we sending? We're going to send the form. So my form will be sent like so. Very good. Seems okay. Okay, so from this, we can have a response and check what's going on. Now we have to create the ajax.php, but for now, let's just see that could not connect. In case we don't find the file on the other side, it will tell us could not connect, even though that's not really what happened. But so here I'll just say save, and image cannot be empty. Really? Image is optional, right? Is it? It's not. So for now, I'll just make it optional just by adding it there. So let's refresh, add, and let's save. Could not connect. See that? Great. So everything is working as intended. Now the text area shouldn't have a tab like this, should be on the same line. Otherwise, this is regarded as information as well. So let's do that. That's why it's not showing the placeholders in there. So address, comment. Great. So now let's actually add the Ajax file on the other side. So what I'm going to do is right click, new file, save. This one will be ajax.php. And then all I want to do here is just type some text and say, this is from the Ajax file. As simple as that, just text, plain text. And now if I say add, and then put stuff in here, and then say save, you see this is from the Ajax file, which means we managed to grab the Ajax file, and everything that's echoed in here or typed in here will be sent as a result. So we have to be careful what we echo in here, because that's the result we are getting once we run this file. So let's put some PHP tags in here so that when we want to show anything, we'll have to actually echo it, because right now this is as good as an empty file. If I try to say send here, I get emptiness. Unless I echo something and say here, something like that, then whatever I echo now becomes the result. So if I save See that here. Okay, so with this in mind, now we can use everything else we've used in here. Let's look at, for example, the login. Let's require that function, for example. All right, this is great. So now we have some functions to work with. Actually, let me do that. Okay, with that in mind, now we can use our query function. So what we want to do, first of all, let me use this if statement. So this would tell us if something really was posted, and that's great. Now, since we're going to be using this Ajax file for editing, deleting, everything, we don't want to create a separate file per action. We want to have one file. So it's a good idea to put data types. That way, the Ajax file will know what to do with that data that you have sent. For example, is this data for adding, inserting into the database? Is it for reading from the database? Or is it for deleting a file in the database? This is why a REST API will use different methods. Instead of just post, it will use put, push, delete, etc., etc. But in our case, we're just going to have to settle with data type. So what I'm going to do is grab this and put it right about maybe here, and then append here. So I'm going to call the key data type like this, data underscore type. And then on this other side, I'll put its value. Now the value here is add new. That's what we're going to call it. So this is just like adding an extra field called data type, and then it will have the value of add new. Good. That way, when we come to the Ajax, we can check for data type. So here, let's make sure data type exists. So we'll say and data underscore type is not empty. That's all I want to check for here. I'm just going to say not empty like that. Okay, so we make sure the data type is not empty and the method is post. Then we are free to come here, and then over here I'm just going to say type, or maybe data type is equal to whatever data type is in here. But maybe we don't need to do that. We can simply just say if data type is equal to add new, like so. Then let's do something here, right? Then we can put an else if statement like here. So let me grab this, else if. Yep. Instead of add new, we just say add record. I think that makes more sense. Then we can say edit record. Then we can say delete record, right? So let me duplicate this. Like that. Okay, good. That way we are more organized. So instead of add new, here let's put add record. Alrighty then. This is looking great. Now the thing is, every time we add a record, when we add a record, we're going to have to send data. When we edit, send data. So which means I'll have to repeat this part of creating an Ajax object, blah, blah, blah. So instead of having to repeat this part here, this save part, I would rather we create a function that we can call over and over. So say function, we'll call it send data. And then paste that information in there, right? Okay, so in here we open an object, blah, blah, blah. Then depending on the object type, the data type, the result will do something different to the result. So let's create another function called handle result. This one is what will decide what we do with the result. So let's say function handle result, like that. And here will be the result text, right? We just call it result. And in there, this is where I will do this. I'll say alert. And since there's no Ajax.response text, there's just result here. Let's use that. Okay, that's more organized. And then here I'll put an object, obj, like that. Okay. Here we are sending my form, but we've removed it. It's not in here, so that's fine. Instead, we send an object that contains all the key value pairs. Then we just create a form. So here I'll grab this. No, grab that. Actually cut it from there and paste it here. So we create a form, that way we can send the form. And then what we do, since we cannot append here anymore, I'll grab this. Actually, we don't need that anymore. Let me remove this. This we need, but let me copy a version of this and remove that from here because we don't need that anymore. And I'll come back here and I'll do a paste. So we are looping through the object now. So instead of inputs, it's going to be object. So let me select all instances of that, paste. Now we don't need this part for checking, validating the data. Data should already be validated by the time we're trying to send. So we are looping through object.length, but the thing is I need the keys of this object. So I won't be using this loop. Instead, I'll use a different kind of loop, which is for key in object, like that. So this just loops in whatever items are in this object and gives me the key of each, because I do need that key to use here. And then I need the wait a second, I think I may have made a mistake here, but that's okay. My form.append the key, and then the value here is going to be obj key, like that. Okie dokie. So we look through the object that was applied, add every item to the form, and then open up the thing, and then do a send of that form. Then when the result comes back, we send it to this function, which would handle the result depending on what data type it is. For now, it will just give us an alert. So now this part has become obsolete. So I'm just going to remove this part here. So instead, we'll call the send data function here and send us the obj, but we haven't created that obj. So let's do let obj is equal to an empty object, like so. Then let's add things to the empty object. So actually, this is where we can do this instead. So I'm just going to grab this and paste it there. So I should have left this one as it was, right? So my bad. That's okay though. So here I'm just going to say obj dot, right? Or let's use those like this to create the keys. So the key will be the input name, whatever that name will be, and the value will be the object, the input value, like so. Okay. Okay, so as we are validating the data, if it passes validation, we add it to the object. And then the final thing is to just send the data and supply that object. And actually should have added something else here. So I'm just going to say obj, and here is data type. Actually, I can do this. I can just say object dot data type. That works as well. Is equal to add record. Okay, so I'm sending that data type as part of the object so that it's added to the form. Okay, I think this sorts the problem out. Pretty good. So now what I want to do is in the Ajax section, since I know it will go here to the add record, so I'm going to echo add a record exclamation point here. And if I get that result, it means everything is working fine. So I'll refresh the page so it reloads the JavaScript. I'll do this and then hit send. Add a record. So things are working as intended in a very organized manner. So here we want to add that new record. So what we're going to do is grab the inputs. So first of all, first name. First name is going to be equal to post first name. Now, just like we did validation in the login sign up thingy here, I think we can just copy contents of that and use it. So I'm just going to grab everything here, copy from the sign up and paste. It's literally the same thing. The only difference is what the inputs are. So there's no username. Instead, there's first name and last name. So I'll grab first underscore name like that. Okay. And then if I duplicate that, I can change first to last. Email is fine. There's no password. Instead, there's a comment and address. Okay. Now, in order to safeguard your database, we can use the add slashes function here to add slashes to any special characters, so they are easily added to the best is to use prepared statements, but that's beyond the scope of this video. I've done prepared statements in other videos. You can check that out if you're interested. So let's use add slashes for now. That's fine. Add slashes works well when, let's say, for example, somebody, instead of just typing a name, they typed John's dad or something when you tell them to type a name. So this exclamation point will cause problems in your query because it looks like a special character. Since if you look at our query here, we're actually putting single quotes on the data. So if there's a single quote in the actual data, it will mean there's a single quote here and there, which would disturb the query itself. So add slashes, we just put a slash on the apostrophe like that to make it a literal value. Anyway, just add it there and it's gonna work. So first name, last name, comment. Let's put image there as well. What else do we need? Email, agenda, and that should do the trick. So let's do gender. That's cool. Okay, awesomeness. Now image for now, it's just going to be an empty like this. Okay. Now you can do your validation, for example. Email is invalid, blah, blah, blah. First name can only have letters and spaces. You can duplicate this to validate the second name as well, the last name. Just change first to last. Like that. Okay. So you can validate the rest of it. Comment can't be empty. You can do that. You can check for emptiness, you can check for email. For me, I think this is fine for now. It's just for demonstrative purposes. You can put as many if statements as you want and just add errors in there. For as long as the errors are not empty, it won't save to the database. So that's fine. And then here, we can do an else statement if errors are there, which means now we can return something instead of emptiness. So first of all, I want to add, let me go here. I want to add an array called info. So it's an empty array like that. Okay. And then at the very end, I want to echo, because whatever we echo is the result. So I want to echo info as the result. But info is an array, so we can't echo it. So whatever we echo here should be a string. So let's convert it to a string using JSON encode. What that will do is it will convert an array to a string, but in form of JSON. JSON is a data format. JSON is just a way of converting an array to a string, and then we convert it in such a way that it's easy to convert back to an array when we need to. So that's what JSON practically is. So the reason we're doing that is we want to send this string over the internet to the client side, and then when we get there, we turn it back into an array. So a very efficient way of sending data. Now on the insert here, insert into users, no, but let's insert into employees, because that's the table now that we are dealing with. So that's employees. And looking at employees, it has very specific columns. So let's grab all those columns here, copy, and I want to put them here. Let's remove this password hashing. I'll put them there, the columns. That way I can see all of them. Then I want to put semicolon on every one of in between these, like so. Okay, there we go, semicolon. So I want to convert these guys into, oh wait a minute, they already are here. Interesting. Good. So all I need to do is just add the one that's missing, which is the date. Yeah, pretty much wasted time. Okay, so date should be equal to, let's create the current date by doing this. Okay, there we go. So that's just the date format. All right, so we have a date, we have everything. Actually, should have put commas here. I wanted to put this as part of, oh, there's a phone, right? This is missing from here. Okay, no problem. Let's just do that, gender, and add phone number, like so. Cool. Now we need to add this to the index page, right? So here where there's address, there's actually email here. I'm just going to duplicate email, change things to phone, type text, phone. Great, done. That way we have that input. So back to Ajax. Let's replace the semicolons with commas instead. Comma. Let's put that. Oh wait. Before I do that, let me just grab this. Cut. So insert into employees and paste here, because those are the folder, the column names, sorry. And then here I will paste as well. Now let me just move it to the next line so I can easily see them here. And I'll select all the commas as I did previously. Use the arrow keys, make those into variables, control right, and do that. The first one doesn't have, let me add that and that. Okay, so those variables are now part of the thing, and then we redirect. We don't redirect anywhere here because this wouldn't work anyway, even if we wanted to. Okay, so info is like that. Let me add something here. Let's add success is equal to false. So I'll grab this just so we know when it's successful and when it's not. Then we'll put success in here. If we got to this part, probably we are successful. So let's change it to true. And let's add one more thing here. Let's add a message. So we're just creating an array of data that we're going to send back when we echo. So we say record added successfully, exclamation point. Okay, that's cool. So now what we can do, actually we can test this. We can test this. Very cool. This should work. So our table is empty at this moment, but let's see. Let's refresh the page, add new. So I'm just going to call this one John Banda. Let's use john@email.com. Phone number, just some random number. Select the gender, male, address, plot number 3. Comment, this is a good dude. Okay, let's save that. And as you can see here, it says this returns JSON, and it says success true, message, record added successful, which is nice. Now I just need to parse this properly. So I'll say okay, and that worked out. Let's see if we have a record here. And sure enough, we do have a record. That's great. Let's add a different one. Let's say, like, is there Mary Jane? And let's change that to mary@email.com. Phone number, plot number 4. Good girl. Okay, so let's save success. And as you can see, a second record. Very good. But let's make things more interesting. For example, this should close. And if I close it, for example, and try to add a new one, I still find this information here. So I need to clear this information every time I try to add a new record. So let's fix those things. So here everything is fine in the Ajax thingy here. Also, if there are errors, for example, when we say else, we should add that to, let's add a message as well. So I'm going to put that here. Success will be false, so no need for that. So here the message will be, please fix the errors. And we can add another one for the errors themselves. So say errors, and we'll put the errors variable there. Great. That way we can have the errors on the other side. So index back. Now the handle result here is what we need to deal with. So where is handle result? It's right here. Now we're expecting the result to be JSON. So alert, here I will momentarily remove that. Now instead of alert, you can use console.log for better information. But we'll mute it for now. We don't need it because we've seen that our result is good. So here what I want is to say let object or obj be equal to JSON.parse. So this is how you, in JavaScript, you get a string of JSON and make it into an object. So the result. Okay. So once we parse it, now we can say if obj.dataType is equal to add record, like that. So we respond specific to the data type. We'll say else, like that. And then I can now duplicate this if statement like this. This will be for the delete. This will be for the edit. Okay, so there's add, edit, delete. I guess I went a bit too far. Or am I missing something? What is going on? There's add, edit, delete. Oh, okay. That's about it. Okay, so in add record here, we'll ask the question if success, if obj.success, meaning if the success is true, let's add an alert, and we'll alert obj.message. That's what we'll show, whatever the message is. And then also it would be a good idea to refresh the page. So we're going to say window.location.reload. Great. Now, if for some reason things didn't go well, we are still going to alert the message. That's great. And then we'll go through the what else do we do? Alert message. The message is like please fix the errors. Maybe we don't need that. Maybe instead what we need is this is a dilemma here. How do I show the errors? Okay, so what I'm gonna do is grab the pop-up. Where do I grab it from? Right there. Which is that thing that holds the information. And then what I'll do is I'll say pop-up dot query selector. In there, I'm going to put something with a class of error or errors, right? And then I'll say dot inner HTML. The inside of it should be equal to wait a second here. The inner HTML of it, the content should be equal to obj.errors.toString, like that. And then dot replace all. I want to replace every comma in there with a break tag. I think the toString does, you can put some text in there. I'm not sure. I'm going to try that. Okay. I think that probably works. And yeah, I think that's about it. Okay, let's give it a shot. Let's see what happens. So refresh the page. Now at the same time, I want this to load the information, but let's just add a new thingy here first of all. So I'm gonna say Jane@email.com, some kind of number. Now I want to intentionally evoke some errors, so I'm going to put numbers in there. Select a gender, female. Oh, my bad. Wait a second. I need to add that errors div. Where is it? I'm going to copy it from the sign up page where we were getting errors as well. So it's right here. Copy. Let me go to the index instead. Maybe this can be above the image, like that. Let's see here. Okay, I think that will do it. And instead of giving it any PHP errors, let's remove that. All we want is to give it a class name, so we are able to read dot. Oh, I don't need the dot. I just need to say errors. Okay, I think that works. So let's try again. So there we go. We have Jane with numbers. Let's say John's. Jane@email.com, some random number, female, and let's leave those empty. So I'm going to say OK. So I don't see anything. Let's go to the console and see what's going on. And it doesn't look like we got any problems. So maybe my coding is incorrect. We don't see any errors either. We didn't see any alert. So what I'm going to do for now is I'll do console.log. I remove that so that I see every result that comes. So obj.datatype is equal to, okay, maybe data type is the one that isn't there. So let's go back to Ajax here. Yeah, that's the thing. We're not sending back the data type. So let's do that. So here I'm going to grab this. Let's grab that. And let's say data type. And whatever data type we came with, we send it back as well, so that even on the response, it knows what data type it is. So I think now it's going to work. So let me click again. And there we go. Please fix the errors. Okay. Where are the errors, man? Show me the errors. Okay, so let's go to the console to see the problem. It says pop-up query select. So I'm guessing the errors thing, it couldn't find it. So what is it looking for? Errors. So how come it can't find this? On the index page. Let's go down. Where is the errors thingy supposed to be? So add new pop-up. Ah, okay. So I ended up putting it on the wrong thing, I guess. Wait a second. Where did I put it? There it is. Gendo. Okay, so I put it on the wrong place after all. Oops. Ugh, my mouse is insane. Errors. That's the class name. So cut that. It should be in the pop-up, which is this one right here. So after that button, I think is a good idea to put it right there. Cool. Okay, so almost there, right? Let's refresh. Add new. Let's try again. Jane. Put some numbers. John's. Jane@email.com. Phone number. Email. We can ignore the rest. Please fix the errors. And we see. Oh. Right. It shows object. What that means is we're trying to display an object instead. So let's see here. What's going on? Object.errors.toString. This should work. Wait a second. Let me just move this in here. Let me remove the dot replace all. Let's just do that. Obj.errors. Yeah. .errors is an array. Interesting. Anyway, what I'll do is this. Instead of struggling here, I'm going to do a console.log again of errors. I want to see what it has. So refresh. This time I'm just going to type gibberish with some numbers, of course. Please fix the errors. Okay, so it shows object, but let's go to the console and see what's going on. So that's the result, but this one is an object. It says email, invalid email, first name can only have letters. Okay, so we have two of these. So what's going on? It's an object. So maybe it doesn't have the toString thingy. Okay, regardless, what we're going to do is we're going to say for obj.errors. I'm just going to say for key in, like that. So here I'm going to create a string. I'll say let string be equal to an empty string, like that. And then what I'll do is I'll say string plus equals obj key, like so. And then I will add, actually instead of doing that, let me use the tilde key. That's the key under your escape key, like that. Okay. So I can do this, that way I can include some HTML here, like this. Okay, so we add the error plus a break tag. And then finally at the end here, we just add the string there, like so. That should do the trick. So let me refresh, let's start again. Do that, save. Please fix the errors, and oh my god, undefined. What is going on here? Okay, it's obj.errors. Sorry, my bad. Oh god. Okay, back again, add. Let's try again. Fingers crossed. Save. Okay, so invalid email address. First name can only have letters and spaces. Okay, so let's do the real thing now. Let me say phone number, female. Let's try again. Invalid email. Okay. jane@email.com. Let's save. Record added successfully. Page refreshed. Look at that. Awesomeness. Now we just need it to read the information and show us over here. So to read data from the database, we're going to use PHP in this case and not Ajax. So once we refresh, it should load all the available files. So on the index page here, we can do that right at the top over here. So what I want to do is say rows is equal to query, and let's create a query like that. Okay, so the query is over here, and the query is very simple. It's just select all columns from employees. That's it. And I want it to have a limit of maybe 20 records. So we'll do that. So select all from employees, limit 20. I want the last record to be the first. So say order by, but we put the order by before the limit. So say order by ID in descending mode. You can use descending or ascending, which is the default, but let's use descending. Okay, that is cool. So we have rows in there. Great. Now all we need to do is come to the table. We can ignore the table header. Let's go to the T body, and inside the T body we look at the rows that are here and loop through it if the rows are there, right? So I'm going to put PHP tags and say if not empty rows, like that. Okay. So if rows is not empty, that's great. What we're going to do is loop through it. So here I'm going to use a for each loop. I'll say for each and put rows as row. So we are looping through and adding each row to the variable row, like that. Okay, so that's well and good. So this is one row here, the top one, and then it ends here, and then this is the second row, and it ends there. So right at the end, let's close this if statement. Say end for each, first of all. I'll duplicate that and end the if statement as well, since they are both for each and and the if statement. So if I now refresh the page, you will see some records have increased. So we're just repeating these records like this. But the important thing to remember is that we added the first record as this doesn't have a hover. This one that has a hover is how the records should look. This one is how the records should look when they are selected, this one. So all we need to look for is the class names. So class 6 is for the selected row. Okay, so I'm going to copy that just for a reminder, create a new thing and say class 6 equals selected table row. Okay, that's really the only difference here. And the other one has item class 1 and class 10, right? So there are two things here. I don't know why I have backup here. I'll remove that. I don't need it. And that's it. So I can remove this. So for example, I remove the first row because I already saved its property, its class name. Now this works like that, okay? But then if I want this one to be selected, all I can do is add class 6 to it. Let me add class _6 like that, and all of them will look like they were selected, I guess, and that works actually. So that's great. So all we need is to toggle that on and off to select a table. So for now we don't need it, so I'll leave it. Now, since the rows have the information, we should extract that information. First of all, let's organize ourselves a bit better. So I'm going to push this in and push the table row in as well. Okay, now that I know the information is in the row, let me use that over here. So I'll put some PHP tags like so. Oh, by the way, if you're wondering why I'm doing this, this equal sign thing is the same as saying PHP echo like that, but shortcut. So that row ID is what I want there. Now this, sorry, I'm used to using objects. These are arrays, so we'll do it like that. So grab, and let's put this one. The column name here is first underscore name. And let me grab that, put it here. This one is last name. And in order to be safe from we're going to use HTML special chars like this. In case somebody saved some JavaScript to hack your system, this will make sure it doesn't run. Or in case they used a single quote or something, or a double quote, it won't affect the table structure or something. So just use HTML special chars so it can escape all the harmful characters. Okay, so I go into detail on this one in another video that's talking about security. Anyway, so first name, last name, and then the phone number, and then the email. So let's put that there. The phone number, and then finally the email. All right. Wait, is that all? Phone, email. Oh, okay. The rest of it is for the other side. Okay, so that's fine. So I'm going to refresh, and now you can see the actual records that are here. Okay, so let's add one more. And this one can be job. So we say job at email.com, number for job, and mail, and an address, plot 44, comment, guy from town, I don't know, anything. So let me click save, and there we go, saved. Good. But the problem is if I click add now, oh, look at that, or it refreshed the page, so there's no need to refresh these. All right, so that's awesome. That solves that problem. Now the thing is, when I click on one of these, I have to select these on a click event, right? So how do we achieve that? So, and once I click on it, before we even show that this is clicked, the information should come here. All right, so go. Okay, so with this information here now, before we even go to viewing the data, actually we can do that first before we go to edit and delete. That should be the final thing. So let's do the selection thing. Let's make sure that when we click, we are selecting a specific thingy here. So what I would do is in the loop here, on the table row here, I'm just going to add an on-click listener for every row. So say on-click, we'll say select underscore record. Now we need to know which record we are selecting here, and luckily there's an ID for each row. So copy that ID and put it here. All right, so select row, and then there'll be a row ID in there. So that's great. That way we can know which row we have selected. Now we need to be able to select the physical row itself. This is for reading the information, I guess. But also, when we do this, actually, maybe let's do this instead. Let's, interesting. Okay, first of all, I need to be able to grab this body. So let's put a class name here and say JS rows. Okay, there we go. Now the reason that is because if I click to select a row, for example, that row will have a border around it. But if I click another one, that one will also have a border around it. But this previous one will also still have a border around it, and that may be a problem. So you see how we use that. But before I solve that problem, let me show you the problem to start with. So here I'll say select record and send the record ID. That's well and good. But at the same time, I want to send the event of this. So maybe instead I'll say select record and send the event instead. I can do much more with the event than the ID. Then what I'll do here is I can say ID. Let me give this guy an ID as well. I'll say row underscore and paste the ID like that. So there will be row underscore and then the ID of the actual row ID. That way we can identify it uniquely. And we know this ID is always unique. But then at the same time, once we click, we run this function called select row with an event. Now with this event, we can grab whatever created the event, which is this, and then grab its ID. That's how we can know what ID is in this. And then also we can work on the thing itself here. So then let's do the select record function real quick. So I'm going to go down to the JavaScript and let's create that function. So right at the end we'll say function and paste that function. Select record, and then in here we put E to represent the event. So what I'm going to say is let table row, the row itself, is go to e.current target. Now current target is whatever item caused the event. In this case that's the table row. That's great. So then what I'm going to say is I'm going to say table row dot class list dot add. So I want to add class underscore 6 to it. That will effectively select that row. So let's refresh and then let me click on it. And as you can see, there it shows it's selected. But the problem, like I said, if I click on another one, that will be selected as well. And another one and another one. So we need a way to remove the others from the selection list. Yeah, that's what we need to do. So before we add that, let's remove all others, or remove other selected rows. Okay, great. So here we'll loop through. Let TRs many table rows is equal to document.querySelector, and in this case what I'm looking for is the JS rows that we created earlier, that class name. Now I want to select all of the, oh actually T rows is that, yeah, I think that's fine, we can use that. And then I want to loop through it. TRs like that. Now what I want to get is TRs I. No. This is not right. I want to get its children. Now if you look at the table, this is actually the T body. The table body has table rows inside it. So let me change that to T body. So instead what I'm looping through is tbody.children. Now the children.length. The children are the let's do that. Are the table rows in there. So I want to go through each table row and then say .class list .remove. I want to remove that class 6 from them. So here we remove all other selected rows and then finally add to the one that was selected. So let's see if this works. So I'm gonna click on this, that worked, click on that, that worked. So as you can see, only one is being selected at once because it goes through and removes all the other selections and then just selects the final one. Maybe I should have done a better job with class 6. Now the advantage with this, if you don't like how the selected row looks like, you can always change it by just going to your CSS styles, right? And look for class _6, which only deals with the border here. But you can indeed change the background color to, let's say, red or some other thing that you would like. So let me refresh and let's select. Now we don't see that thing here. It's because if we go back to index.php, the CSS file has been cached. So what you can do is just put a question mark at the end of the CSS and then just put some random values. Now instead of random values, I like to just put v1, v2, v3, just like that. Keep going every time I want it to refresh. So if you see that your styles are not reflecting after you edit them, just go back and change that v to some other number, or just put some random text. It doesn't really matter. So let me select, and now you see it's doing that. So entirely up to you how you want to manage that. Let's go back here. Maybe let's do EEE, something, just slight darkness on the selector, like so. So at least we know it's selected. Like that. Okay, I think that works perfect. Now the thing is, I want a way so that when I click on this, it shows information here. Now we can do this in two ways. The first way is when we click here, since we know the ID of this thing, we can just use Ajax to send data and receive it back, the full data, and then put it here. So that's how you can go if the data is quite large that you are grabbing for each row. But the thing here is that this very limited amount of data. The only thing missing is the address and the comment from this. So we don't need to really go back to the server to do that. What we can do instead is we can save that information in the JavaScript so that when we click on one of these, it's instant. It just shows us that information there. So in order to do that, let's go back to the index here. We need a way to save that information. So first of all here, I want to say var current, or let's just call it row ID, shall we? Let's capitalize it. Row underscore ID is equal to 0 for now. Okay. Now every time we click on an item, we change the row ID. That will be the whatever row is currently selected. That's what will represent that. So here we know We can know that by just checking tr.id. Actually, let's do this. We'll say row ID is equal to tr.id. Now the problem is with tr.id is the ID is row underscore. This is how we made it. We made it a row. Let me go back here, just so we are on the same page. I'm going to the table. Here is what we did. We made an ID, but we added some text, row, because I think if you add just numbers to the ID, it doesn't work very well. That's why I've added row here with an underscore and the actual ID. So all we need to do is remove this part, then we remain with the ID. So that's what I want to do. I'm going to replace this with an empty string, and then I can grab the actual ID. So that's great. So here what I want to do is dot replace. You can use replace or if there are many things to replace, but it's just one. I want to replace row and underscore with emptiness. That will leave the actual number. So then row ID is going to be equal to that. So now I want this to be considered an integer. So I'll do this. I'll say parse int like that. All right, to make sure it's an actual integer. Okay, great. And then what I'll do now is, so the row ID will change. Now, in order to know that this is actually working, let's do an alert here and show us the row ID every time we click. Oops, I didn't need that. Okay, so I'll refresh and just look at the numbers here. There's 4, 3, 2, 1. So if I click on this, it should show me a 2, and it does. If I click on 4, show me a 4. So it's actually working. It's knowing what row I clicked, and that's the row that's selected. Good. That's a good first step. The second thing is I want it to show me the information, the actual information of the row I clicked. So we're going to create a function called getRow, and then we give it the row ID, and then it should bring us the information that we want. So I want it to alert me to that information instead. So let's create that function. We'll call the function get_row, and then we'll assume an ID was sent. Now we're going to create another variable that contains all the rows. We're going to call it rows like that. So I just want to loop through it. So I'm going to say, what do I do here? I'm going to say 4. We'll loop through rows. Okay. Now we want to ask ourselves if rows I, the current row, dot, okay, the ID is equal to the ID that the user is requesting, then we've found our row. Okay, and now I want to return the current row there. That's what I will return. Now, if I don't find the result, I'll just return, what do I return? An empty object. Like that. Okay. Okay, I think that should work. So let's see that in action. Okay, so it's giving me an error. Oh, that's because we didn't create this rows variable. So let's create it. So I'm gonna go here and say var rows is equal to an empty object. Actually, this is going to be an empty array, I think. Yep, an empty array, but instead of it being an empty array like this, remember that at the top here we check for these rows, right? we read those rows there. So what I would do is let me put some PHP tags here. All right, and put this in single quotes like so. Actually, we don't need that. So what I want to do is echo out rows, but I want to do this in JSON format. So say JSON encode rows like that. Now it's possible that rows could be empty, right? So here I'm gonna put 2 question marks and put, if it's empty, I'm just gonna put an empty, decode an empty array instead. Okay, like that. And then let me come back here. If rows is empty, let's convert it to a no object. So I'm saying if empty rows is equal to no. Okay, great. And so what we have here is a JSON format of a PHP row, but I want to convert it to an object, a JavaScript object. So I'll use JSON.parse like that. So hopefully that's gonna work out. Now you can check the source code to see what's gonna be returned here. That way you can understand what's happening. So let's go to the console and make sure nothing is wrong. Now if I click on this, I get an object. So things are working as intended, but let's right click and go to the page source. I want you to see what's going on here. So in the page source, let's go to the JavaScript part. And when we reach here, you see it's as good as saying var rows is equal to json.parse. And then look at this. This is the information that was retrieved from the database in JSON format, and then we are parsing it to create an array. So hopefully that's understood. That way we have an array that contains all this information. Now the reason it's showing an object like this is because I'm trying to echo an array in the console, or I'm trying to alert an array. So what I would do instead is, let's say row ID dot first underscore name. Let's try that. Wait, is it row ID? Get row. Oh, wait, no. What am I doing? Okay, we are giving that row ID, but this get row is what brings the result. So which means this is an array. And what I would do is I'll say dot, it's an object actually, dot first underscore name. I just want to see if I can get some information of the first name of whoever I have clicked here. So if I click here, I get Mary, that's true. John, that's true. And job, that's true. Okay, so things are working. Now instead of echoing the name here, I want it to go this way instead. So let's give a name to this so we can grab it as well. So here, instead of select record here, right? Instead, we're going to return this. And what are we returning? The get row. Oh my god, the mouse. Let me do this. Like that. Okay. So we're returning an object here. This will either be an empty array or contain the user row from there. Okay, so select record. Okay, not returning actually. Instead of returning it, what we need to do is create another function that will display the information. So instead we'll say display info of that. So let's create this display info function. So we'll say function display info, and then here we'll consider the info an object like that. Okay, so let's display that. Now to start with, all I'm going to do is grab this part, the side part here, which is this one here that contains this information here. So it's this one actually. Let me select this and see what's going on. Okay, there we go. So we are okay to grab this instead because it has all these. So what I'm going to do is put a class name that will enable us to grab it. So JS info, that's what I'm going to call it. So I want to grab that using document.querySelector. So I will try and use, just so I don't have to type much, but this is not so good. I'll say I'll call it div is equal to let's call it info div is equal to, let's use document here instead. Query select, and what are we looking for? It's .js info. Right. And then I'm going to say info div dot inner HTML is equal to obj. Now I want this to be in a string format because the obj is an object. So just for me to see that the information is getting there, I'll use JSON dot stringify. So stringify is how you convert an object into a string, and parse is how you convert a string back to an object. So I just want to see if this works. So we see a different thingy here. Refresh. And there we go. So you see that row of information there. And it changes as I click over here. So this is the general idea. Now, instead of it doing this, I want it to be ordered properly so it goes in the right place without replacing the stuff here. So instead, what I would do is I'll go to this part, the JS info, which is here. That's the part that I want to display information. And I'll add classes to all of these items. Like this image here, I'm just going to say, I'll call it JS info dash image, like that. So let me grab that. Actually, this is not the right one. The user image is this one. So let me put that. This I don't care about. That's the image on the top. And here, instead of this, I want to put no image. The placeholder .jpg. The John Doe here, this one is name, both first and last. This one I'll call it gender, and then of course this one will be phone. The phone is really here. So you can put placeholders here. Email, let me remove these break tags, I don't need them. So every item that I need stuff replaced, this is the wrong one, I should have put this here. And the address is actually in here. Let me empty that. And the comment is actually in here. Let's remove that placeholder. We can put 3 dots instead, maybe. All right. So back here, let me refresh, and this is what I see. Okay, cool. So you can decide what you want as a placeholder here, and this is what I have for now. So let me click on this, and this is what I get. Now let's fix that. So I'm gonna go to the function that does the displaying, and instead what I want to do is say, let me mute this. So let's do this. Let's do a query selector from the div input. So js-info-name, for example. So let's change its inner HTML to match the object. So obj.first name plus obj.last name. But let's put a space between the names. So put another plus, put a space, like so. Okay. So let's see how that works. So I'm going to refresh and click here. And as you can see, the name updates accordingly, which is awesome. So we can do the same thing for the rest of these. This one is gender, and this one will change to gender. And let me remove the other part. So let's try this out again. That's male. That's male, male. There should be a female. Okay, so that's female, male, female, male. Okay, so it seems it's actually working. So let's try the rest. So let me do email. Let's change that. Let's do phone. Let's do date. There isn't date actually. Should have added that, I guess. Address and comment. So let me use address instead so we don't get an error, and comment. But we can also add date. So let's add that date thing. Let's come here, right here on comment. I will duplicate that and say something like date created, and let me put date there. Okay. All right, so if I now refresh, that's what I get. Then when I click, that's the information I get. So as you can see, the information is working well. Okay, so far so good. But when we reload the page, if you don't want to show this and you want to show something else instead, so let's try and add a different div here. So I'm going to duplicate these two, like so, and then close them, and close this one as well. So now I have two sets of these. So if I now refresh, I have this one and this one. So the first one, I just want to say the content here and just put an h1 tag maybe, and say no row selected, and then please click on a row to see details here. So let's see how that works. This shouldn't be h1. Maybe let's try h4. Let me refresh. No row select. Please click on a row to see details here. And then once you click, oh, unfortunately, these have the same class. JS info. I'll just call it JS info none, so it's different. And then originally I'm just gonna hide this one, or maybe this one. I think I should hide this one instead. Actually, let me move this to the main one here. It will still work. Let me do the same thing here. like so. And then on this one, I'll put the hide class. That way it starts out like this. And then let's go down here. So on the JS, the div info here, let me info div none. So that I select both here. And then I want to show one of these. So I'm just going to say info div none dot class list dot add. Let's add the hide class. Then I'll duplicate this line, remove the none, and then remove the hide from there. Once we click the first time, that's it. So I'm going to refresh here, and then when I click on one of these, it shifts to that one, like so. Okay, very good. Now that works well. Now let's deal with images, right? So in order for us to deal with images, we have to be able to edit. But even before that, on the add, we should be able to upload our image. So let's change a few things there. So what I'm going to do is when saving the image, the data here, let's come here, add new record, right? So what I'm going to do is on the add new record, we can add an edit record here instead. So let's see what's going on. There's an object, we're adding this. Okay, so what I can do is I'll do row ID here is for the selected ID, right? So usually the selected ID will be the one that we are editing at any given moment. So what I can do is just try to see if we are in edit mode or add mode at any point. So I'm going to duplicate this and just say edit mode is equal to false. Okay. All right. So when we're adding a new record here, we are adding these, and then we're adding data type here. What I'm going to do is put an if statement and say if edit mode. So if we are in edit mode, let's add one more item called ID, and then do this, and then we're going to select whatever row ID is currently selected. So then on the other side, we need to do is check if the ID exists, then this is an edit. If it doesn't, it's an add operation. Okay, that's how we can save instead of recreating another function that would do pretty much the same as this. Okay, so with that in mind, let's so show add record, right? Here we can put edit mode. Edit is equal to false for now, right? And then if we say here, we put this variable, but then we give it a default value of false. So normally it's going to be false. But then if we say show add record and then we put true in here, it means edit mode now becomes true. So we'll say if edit, right? Then we'll say edit mode is equal to true, like that. Okay. And then after we are done with data saving here, we should move away from edit mode. Once we say save data, we're gonna say edit mode is equal to false. That way we have to start again if we are editing. All right, so with that in mind, that is cool. Now what we need to do is, let's go to the rows themselves here, and this is the part where we I don't need this backup thingy. Let's remove that and move this here. Okay, so on here we have the pencil square, which is the edit, and this one is the delete. So here on the edit, we will say on click, what do we do? Add new record, like that. No, actually, it should be show add new record, right? And then in here, I want us to send an ID. Actually, this is what will work better. So let me grab this. Let's put an ID there. Show add new record. So let's go back here again. There's show add new record, and edit is equal to false. So instead of this, let's just do ID is equal to null, like that. Okay, so we're sending an ID. So if there's no ID, if there's an ID, then edit mode is true. Okay, and then row ID should be equal to whatever that ID is, just to be sure. Okay, good. Actually here, this is where we should deal with edit mode as well. If there's no ID, let's move away from edit mode, like that. Okay, that's great. Okay, I think that does it as well. So let's go back and try this again. So now if I click on this, it shows me this, which is good. And then save. Now the only difference is now I need to have this information in here for this particular row. So when we say show add, I want to do what I did here, display info, but on the other side. So let's do this. Let me grab all of this in here. Actually, maybe that's the wrong thing to do. What I'm going to do here is this. If ID exists, so row ID is equal to that, edit mode is true. But then here, let's see, display existing row values in inputs. That's what we want to do. So the pop-up is already there, so I'm going to say pop-up dot query selector, and I want to grab all the input select and text area. So here I'm gonna say let inputs is equal to. Okay, so once we grab those, let's do a for each loop, a for loop there, again like what we did before, and we're just going to say input dot value is equal to, and then here I'm going to put so we have this information. Since we have this row ID, we can always get the information using this function here, get row, with this ID there. So where am I? I'm lost. Okay, so there we go. So here we're going to say let row is equal to get row with that particular ID. And then I'll copy this. We know the row exists, so I'll do row dot let's see the input name. Let's use that, like so. So normally, for example, in the row we can have like row first name, for example, like this. Okay, or you could do it like row.firstName, like that. It's the same thing. But instead, we want to use the name of the input. So this current input dot its name, which is usually the key as well. So let's see if that actually works at all. So let me click on this, and as you can see, it's actually working. So let me click on this one as well. Look at that, working indeed. But if I decide to add new, now I see problems because there's this information here which needs cleanup. So we can clean up this information just by using this exact system. So I'm going to copy this, and let's go show add edit record. So whether edit mode is true or not, we want to delete, put empty values in everything, in every input there. Just grab the inputs, put empty value. Now we are repeating this line. It's exactly as this line. So which means we do not need to repeat it. We just need to put it above both if statements. Then we can remove it from there. Okay, so at this point, let me refresh. Click on edit for this one, close. Click on edit for this one, close. Let's click add new, and things are empty, which is awesomeness indeed. Okay, so things are working. Now on the other slide, on the Ajax slide, this I can remove. So on the Ajax side here, we want to grab ID as well, if it exists. So I'm going to check for it. I'll grab one of these. So everything must be verified here as usual. But then we have this insert, save to database, right? That's fine. But then we'll say if not empty, the ID, then in that case we should, we should do one thing and then do the other when we have a different. So we don't need to put a note there. We can just say if it's empty. Let's grab this query and let me move it up like so. So there is our query when let me grab this part. When there's no ID, but when there's an ID, here we'll say saved. Okay. But when there's an ID, the query should change. Now the query for updating is like this: update employees, then set, and then you go one by one telling it which column to set, and then you give it a where clause and say where the ID is equal to, and then we can add an ID like that, and then we say limit 1 since we want to just edit one row. So we can put the where clause on the next line like that. Let me put a space. But on this one, let me put all those columns. So I'm just going to grab this. So set first name column is equal to first name as the variable. And then we grab last name. Same thing. We just keep going. And then email. So that's all we're gonna be doing here. Gender, let's put gender here. Let's put address and comment. Where is that? And finally, the date. Okay, so date, comment, where ID is equal to ID. So of course we need ID here. So if ID exists, then let me grab this from here. Oopsie daisy. And then let me move to this point. Let's paste that. My the scroll on my mouse doesn't work very well. That's why I'm having trouble here. Oh my god. Okay, let me not use it. ID. Okay, so ID is equal to ID. Now we have everything we need, and then let's save. So let's see if things are working as intended. So job jab. So let's change George Jab to job book. So let me save that. Record saved successfully, and as you can see, it's been edited quite well. Okay, let's change the phone number if we wish. 000987. Let's see if that changes. And there it is. Let's try to add a new record, but this time I want us to use I want us to add images as well, because as you can see there are no images here. So let's deal with images. So in the Ajax side, we need to know if an image exists so that we can change this value here, right? And on the edit, we will have to take care of that image thingy as well. But no matter, let's do things step by step. So let's verify our image first of all. So I'm gonna come here and say if not empty, as always. This time we're going to look into the files because that's where all images go. And this one is going to be called image and then name. So if there's an image name there, then it means we do indeed have an image. But let's look at the allowed image formats. Now I could copy this from here. I already have this, like so. Okay. All right, so those are the allowed ones. So I'm going to say if not in array. So what's the needle is what we are looking for. So here we're looking for the files type. Actually, we're supposed to have image here because that's where it says in, and then type like so. The haystack is where we are searching, which is in the allowed section here. So if not in array, or we say if in array, that's better, so that we can put an else statement if things didn't go well, and instead run put an error. We'll just say image invalid image format. Okay, but otherwise let's do everything else in here. So to move an uploaded file, there's just very convenient function called move uploaded file, and the uploaded file is inside files, of course, image, and then tmp name. That's where it is. So the destination is, I guess, the image. That's what we'll call it. So move uploaded file. Now let's set that file name. So we're going to say image is equal to, first of all, let's create a folder so that we can save things in a folder. Let's concatenate to that folder the file name. So I'm going to go files image dash name like that, and that's it. But let's create our folder, and folder is going to be equal to uploads slash. But it's possible this folder does not exist, so let's check on it and make sure it does exist. So if it does not exist, mk directory. So we're gonna create it, give ourselves permission to edit, and put true for recursive folder creation. Here I'll put a not because I'm only interested if it does not exist. That's only time I need to create it. Okay, so move the file, and that's done. And the image is going to be equal to wherever we moved it. So now image contains better info. So great there. Now another thing could be we don't want to move the file if there will be other errors, for example. So maybe in this case it's okay since it's going to replace it anyway, so that's fine. So I think this probably works. Okay, I think that does it. Now there's only one problem here. The problem is that if we are editing and then we don't change the image, this means the image thing will be empty here, and then if it's empty like this, it's going to delete what was existing at first. Okay, so in that case what we need to do is create an image thingy here first. So I'm going to say image string. That's what I'll create. Image string is equal to something here. So let's try and the image string will look something like let's move here. That's the part where we're adding the image. Oh, so we don't actually add the image thingy here at all. So let's change that. So after date here, I'll put image as a column, and let me duplicate that last one. So on the insert, it's not a problem. Put an image. And then let's move. It's only a problem when updating. So I'm going to duplicate this last one like so. And let me, in fact, let me just add the image string here like so. So det would be the end. If image string is empty, then this remains as a normal query. But if image string contains something like this, then the images will be added, the image thing will be added here. So I want to bring this over here instead, like so, and then change that to image like this. So image string is equal to that. So this should only be done like this if not empty image. So which means if an image was uploaded, that's when we do this. And let me put a comma here because it should come after one of those. This will be the last one in the row there. So that's what it's gonna do. Let's see, image plus, I don't actually need it to be like that. Okay, so I'll leave it. Otherwise, we'll put image string should be equal to an empty string like that, but if an image was added, we put it as part of the query like so. So hopefully that isn't too hard to understand, but the reason we're doing this is because if, let's say, I had added an image first of all to a row, and then when editing I don't add an image. Now since the image column is going to be empty, it will delete the existing link to that old image. So we don't want that. We only want to delete the old one if the new one, a new one exists. Okay. All right. So with that in mind, we should be good. Now on the index side here, where we are adding display image, where we are saving records here. Where is that? Not the handle result, but the send data, not the send data actually. Here when we're adding new record. Right here where we say edit mode, blah, blah, blah. It wants us to check for an image, first of all. If image was added, then we add image to this thing. So I'm going to put an if statement here. If edit mode, we add an ID, right? That's fine. But also if image added, let's add an image. So we're going to say obj.iImage will be equal to, so the image now will be equal to, let's see, here we grabbed all the inputs, right? Okay, so we need to do that from in here. Let's see, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? Okay, instead I can target the image thingy directly, or I can just loop through one more time until I find the image thing. So let's do this. I'll move this in. So I'm just looping through all the inputs, and then the question is, if inputs dot name is equal to image, let's move that out. Actually, I don't need to do this here. Let me just cut this. Let me remove this as well. Let me just move down here, and I'm gonna say oops, if, let's do that. Oof. This is very annoying. My scroll mouse just scrolls on its own without being prompted. Okay, so I'm gonna duplicate this and move it out of here and put an else statement like so. So if inputs.name is, if inputs I.name is equal to image, meaning this is the image input, everything else stays the same. The name remains image, but instead of value, we're gonna get from files 0. That's the items we're gonna, that's the item we're gonna get, the file itself. Else we deal with this. Now image added as well should be part of this, right? So we'll say if image added, like so. So we have to make sure that an image was added, otherwise we ignore it. All right, I think that does the trick. So let's test this. All right. So either on edit or on add, both should work. So I'm gonna click on this. Let's add JLaw over here and let's do a save. Okay, so clearly there's some error there. Let's go to the console. Here it says an attempt was made to use an object that is not or is no longer usable. Let's click there to see what line that is. It's this one, input. Display existing rows. That's weird. Back to the console. Let's see what's in the unknown column image in field list. Okay. So here, I guess image we didn't add. This is the problem. In employees, there's no image in this structure. So that's where the problem is. So let's add, go to structure. Let's add one more column. Let's call it image. Variable character. Let's put 1024. Can put any length because we're going to be putting the link to the image. Let's click no here to make sure that it can save an empty value. Okay, so now we have that column. So that's what the error was. Let's refresh. Let's select it. Let me click there. Let's add JLaw one more time. And let's hit save. Record saved successfully. Now let's click on that it doesn't still show. So let's go to the browser and see if it actually saved. So it did save uploads and the name of the file JPEG, so that's good. Then let's look for the upload. So it's created a folder here, as you can see. PHP has created a folder. If we click, there's actually a file there. So everything went well, I guess. The only reason we're not seeing anything here is because we are not actually retrieving that information. So let's go to display. There's that function that displays things, which is right here. It doesn't display the image one. So I'm going to add it to the end and just say image like so. So then it can access the image as well. So let me click, click, click. Still doesn't work, it seems. Oh, actually, it's because we are targeting the inner HTML. Let's target the source of the image, because that's where we add images. It's in the source. And there you can see. There we go, there we go, there we go, there we go. Now, as you can see, when there's no image here, it doesn't show, it doesn't revert back to the default image. And that's what I want it to do when the image does not exist. So what I'll do is I'll go to the Ajax side here of things and look for where we are reading the information from. Actually, we're reading it from the index page directly. So what I'll do is I'll go up here. Two things I'm gonna do here. I want to change. First of all, the date. I want it more human readable, and I want the image to show a missing image if an image was not found. So let's go to functions and create a function to do that for us. So first of all, let's create a function called let's see, get image. That's what we'll call it. And here let's put the file, and then we tell it to return. We're going to return assets index slash images slash no image. Is it no image? What's the file name? No image, yes, .jpg. So I'm targeting this one right here. So it's images asset index. That's the file name. So that's what we return there. But if the file exists, so we're going to say if file exists, whatever file we were supplied with here, then we're going to return the file itself. Okay, otherwise we return the empty one. So get image is our baby. So what I want to do here is say if empty rows is equal to null, otherwise, which means it's not empty, let's loop through it, right? We'll say for each rows as key row. Oh. So what I want to do is edit rows here. So I'm going to say rows key. In this case, I want to target the image column of each row. So here, image column is equal to, and we'll say get image, and then put the image row in there. That way, if the image exists, it will leave that image info there. If it doesn't, it will put the placeholder. That's the idea. So I'm gonna refresh and let's click now. And as you can see, that works very well. Let's do exactly the same thing for the date. So I'm gonna duplicate this and let's grab the date instead. So we don't have get date function, but we do have a date function, and we can change the date format using that. So small letter J, capital S, F, comma, year. You can put the time if you want, but not needed. And let me put brackets on this one because it doesn't take this thing. It's string to time. So we need this function called string to time to convert our date into an integer, which is called it's called a Unix timestamp, I guess. This is what the date function requires. So, and then the format there. So let's see how that looks. So you see how the date looks right now, but if I refresh, click, it looks more human readable. 19th February 2023. That's the date created. You can put the time if you want by just putting hour, capital H, minute, capital I, seconds, small letter I and S, and then the A there for AM or PM. So if I refresh, click, you see now it shows me the time as well, 15 p.m. 15 p.m. Oh yeah, that's true. Okay, so it's up to you what you want to do there. So things are working as intended. So let's try and edit Jane as well. Jane Jones. Let's add an image of Jane Jones. And let's save. Okay, there we go. So things are looking up. John, let's add a male for a change. Okay, so at this point we can see things are working as intended, which is awesome. Okay, so there we go. Things are working. Now we need to deal with pagination as well, how to paginate here, and then the delete button as well. So let's start with the delete and then we can move on. So I can just click here and say, do you want to delete, yes or no? So how I'll do that is through the loop. Actually, we can just say create a function called delete underscore record. Let's put an ID in there of the delete ID. So if confirm, are you sure you want to delete this record? Record number, and then I can leave a space there, put a plus and the ID. Return. So let's put an exclamation point here. Now there's a function called confirm, and the confirm function just brings a prompt just like the alert, but it has yes or no so that you can agree yes or no. So then it returns true or false. Whether you agreed yes, that's true. If you cancelled, it says no. It returns false. So you're checking to see if it returns false, then we exit the function. If not, then we delete by doing a send data. That's what we need to do. And then let's put an object in there. Here we can say let obj be equal to an empty object. Then we can say obj.data type is equal to delete record. And then obj.id is equal to row ID. Whatever the row ID is at the time, that's the selected item. So that's what will happen. Okay, so let's test this. Here, delete record ID should go into the row. So let's see here. There's the edit and delete button. I don't know where those are. It's right here. So on click on the delete button. So on click function, we do that. And just like with show new record here, we'll put our ID in there. Like so. So let's refresh and let's see. If I click here, let me try and delete number 3. Are you sure you want to delete record number 3? Cancel. Nothing happens. So let me go back to the handle result function. So here we have if record, delete record, blah blah blah. Here really it's the same thing here, so there will be no errors though. So I'm just gonna I'll copy this and paste it there. So edit record won't be there because it's always add record actually. So I'm gonna do this. So delete record. There will never be errors there, but who knows, maybe errors could be there when deleting, but I doubt it. So let's remove all that. Window.location, blah blah blah. That looks okay. Back in the Ajax here. Let me move here. Okay, so edit record is not a thing anymore. Remove. So what I want from here is the ID. So I'm gonna grab this. Oh my god. And put it here. Okay, so let's grab the ID. Let's make a query. A delete query is very simple. Go something like delete from employees where ID is equal to ID limit 1, and then we run the query. Simple as that. And then we say success and a message. Simple and straightforward. So let's refresh. Let's try number 3. Click yes. Record deleted successfully, and it didn't happen, right? Okay, so the record looks like it's still alive and well. Okay, so let's see what's going on. Clearly, if this is showing, it means it does reach here. So delete, oops, where ID is equal to ID, limit 1. Looks very straightforward. So let's go back here. So I want to go to the delete function. Where is it? Delete record. So data type, delete record, ID, row ID. So that looks pretty straightforward. It does. Let me try it one more time and check the console. Let's inspect the console. Let's delete. Okay. So that's what we get. Success, true, data type, delete record message, record deleted successfully. So it seems everything is supposed to work well, but it isn't. So which leaves the query. Delete from employees where ID is equal to ID. Okay. So maybe what I'm going to do is just echo the ID. I want to see what ID I am being given here. Maybe that's where the problem is. So let's inspect so that we have our console there. The ID should be 3 and it says 0 over there. So that's not good. So we're getting ID 0. So let's change that. Go back here And instead of putting row ID, I'll grab this one here. I don't know why I'm using row ID. That's my bad. Okay, this should work now. So delete, yes, and the record is gone. Okay, cool. So now let's add a new record. Let's put an image there. Let's say Tanya knows Tanya at email.com. Let's put a phone number. Let's put a gender, some address, some comment, and finally let's save. Okay, so Tanya is saved, and there it is. So simple and straightforward. Now things are working. Now let's deal with pagination. So pagination isn't hard to do. And also we probably need a logout button somewhere. So let's do that real quickly. So authentication is the opposite of logout. So let's just do logout button like that. We don't need any input from it. All we need is to unset this value. So all I'm going to do is say if is set. If that value is set, then unset it. It's as simple as that. Okay, then we have logged out. And maybe at the same time we can redirect the user. Let's redirect the user to the login page. Okay, simple and straightforward. What else? Pagination, right? So I'm going to create a logout page. It's going to be an empty page, so new page, just some PHP tags, and then we'll say logout. That's it. Save this, logout.php. And that's all. So in the index page here on the header, where is this? So after this employees, we can simply add another div here, and we can put text like hi. And then if we check in our session, the first name, and close that, we can have something cool here. So if I refresh, cannot use type class as array. Wait, what? Wait a second. This is weird. Okay. So I was dealing with another project, that's why. So let me do a logout. You probably won't have this problem. Logout.php cannot. Okay. So the reason that isn't working is because we require the functions thingy as well. So let's go to logout.php. We require functions. So let's refresh, and there we go. So let me log in properly. Okay. So undefined array key name on line 44. But why? Let's go to the login page here and see. We authenticated row, that's fine. But on the index, yeah, we don't have first name actually. We only have username for users. First name is for employees, and that's why. Okay, so there it says hi, and it shows me my name. So let's put some styling here. Style, background color should be white, and then let's put text alignment center. Okay, and there it is. But this thing on the top here, let's add a style. I'll say margin bottom 0 pixels. That way it doesn't have a space here, and there we go. Okay, good. Then we can put the logout. Where is that? Where am I? Oh no. Oh, there it is. So let me do this. That way I can see better what I'm doing. So here I want the word logout. And I want to put a link to that logout.php page. Let me move this into there, like so. Let's do the non-breakable space, like that. That's an HTML version of a spacebar. Okay, so now I can click on logout, and I'm logged out now. And if I try to go to my index page, I can't go there anymore unless I log in, and there we go. And it tells me who I am. Okay, and everything is loading quite well. Now let's do pagination. This says it's page 1. That's fine. To do that, let's go up here and let's determine what page we are on. So I'm just gonna create a variable called page and say we grab from the get variable if there is one called page. Otherwise, let's conclude that page is equal to 1. And then let's make sure that page is an integer, because we're grabbing this from the URL and somebody can easily edit that. So I just want to convert it to an int, like so. Then of course, if page is less than 1, then we should reset it back to 1, because we can't have a page 0. So there we go. At least now we know what page number we are on. So copy that. Now this should come first actually before the query here, because we're going to use the page number to query things. So I'll put it right at the top there. And so we're going to have a limit. The limit is the number of items per page. So instead of putting a hard-coded number here, I'll just use the variable limit. Then we're going to have what is known as an offset. Now the offset is going to be equal to the page minus 1 times the limit. So I explained this in detail in other tutorials, but what we're trying to do is the offset here, limit, and then we say offset. That's what creates pagination. So for example, if when you make a request from the database, the offset is 0, meaning that whatever records it gets, that's what it will show you. But if you put and say you have an offset of 1, then what it would do is it's going to ignore the first result and then start from the second one. So whatever the offset is the number of records it's going to ignore before it starts getting. So it's going to count, let's say you say offset 10. Among the results, it's going to skip 10 results and then start grabbing the actual results after that 10th one. So that's how we create pages when reading from the database. Now we're using the limit because we want to offset every 20 pages. So page 2 should have an offset of 20 because we don't want to read the first 20 results. We want to start after 20, then we read the next ones. That's page 2. So that's why we're using it in the formula here. So if you look at the page number, you can calculate for every page to get the offset. So the offset is the only thing that changes when dealing with pages. Okay, so with that, it should work. So here, let's look. If in there I put a question mark and say page is equal to 2, you see that we get no results because that's page 2 now. However, if we leave it at page 2 and then I say the limit is 2 only per page, then we'll have some records on page 2 because we have more than 2 records. And as you can see, there it is. So if I change that to page 3, then it's empty. Page 1, we see Tanya. Page 2, we see Mary at the top. So it's working right now. But let's leave it at 20 records per page. And also here it has to write what page number we are on. So that's trivial to do. Let me just find the point where it says page 1, which is right there. I just did a quick search. So here I will echo out page like that. Simple and straightforward. So now it says page 2. Follows that. First page here is just a link to the first page. So I'm going to add this. I can actually use JavaScript here. Interesting. Let me try to use an A tag. Let's see if it doesn't break the structure of things. No, it does not. So that's great. So the first page will always be index.php. Simple and straightforward. But the previous page is a little bit more difficult, right? So here I'll just put a variable instead. I'll say prev_page, because previous page is special. Next page is not difficult. Let me close that, because all we need to do is add 1 to the current page. So here I'll just say index.php and then say page is equal to, and then put my page number there and then just put +1. Simple as that. Now previous page, on the other hand, needs to be precise because we can't go. Actually, it's not a problem. I think I can still use this. Really, I can actually, because it self-corrects at the top there, so that's okay. We can use the minus. Okay, so refresh. Previous page. Okay, so we went completely out of range. What we're supposed to do. Oh, here I didn't put index.php. Sorry. And then page is equal to. Okay, that's what's missing. So let's refresh. Previous page. There we go. Previous page. So even though it says page 0 here, you see it says page 1 because even though I keep going there, it's okay. Next page, page 2, previous page, first page, next page, previous page. So if I now change the limit to 1 per page, so let's see how many pages we can have. That'll be 4, I guess. So we go next page, next page, next page, none. First page. All right, cool. So everything seems to be working as intended. All right, so hopefully you have learned something new in here, and just add more records and see how far things go. And yeah, I hope you've learned something new, and I will see you in another tutorial.